Welcome to the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. I'm KM Weiland, and I am here to take you deep with story theory, writing techniques, and the incredible wisdom of story. I believe story is the greatest power on this earth, and that as writers, we carry the torch of wielding that power with responsibility, passion, and skill. There's no such thing as just a story. Today, it is my honor and my purpose to help you write your best story, astound the world, and maybe change your life. Hello and welcome. You are listening to Season 17, Episode 4. So before we get started today, I have a couple things to share. The first is just a quick note to let you know that if you've been eyeing any of my products, this month is a good time to buy them. And this is because after a lot of consideration, I will be raising the prices for most of my products. This will apply to the store on my site as well as Amazon and other retailers. Most of the prices will only change by $1 or so, but if you'd like to save a bit of change, now is the time. The courses and guided meditations will see the biggest increase. Audiobook prices will remain the same. It has always been my desire to keep my products as affordable as possible. I want everyone to be able to buy, if not the paperbacks, then at least the ebook versions. So I hope you will be able to take advantage of the current prices this month, and I hope you enjoy the books and use them to write many wonderful stories. Next, I'm excited to tell you today's episode is sponsored by an amazing opportunity from Demonza.com. They are one of the leading names in book cover design right now, and you may have heard me mention them in the past as they have designed most of my book covers. Damon Freeman, the renowned creative director behind Demonza.com, is offering free book cover reviews. So whether you're about to publish or you're just curious to know how your cover stacks up, this review is a no-brainer. This is a fresh, informed perspective that offers valuable insight into how your book cover performs in today's competitive market. So don't miss this chance to make your book unforgettable. It's totally free, and all you have to do is visit demonza.com/review/WBA to get started. That's demonza.com/review/WBA. And now, welcome to this week's episode, exploring the impact of AI on fiction writing, opportunities and challenges. Artificial intelligence is changing the way we do just about everything these days, and the impact of AI on fiction writing is no exception. As a writer who cherishes the creative process, I have spent the last few years grappling with both the possibilities and pitfalls this new technology brings. On the one hand, AI offers tools that can make our lives easier, such as helping with research, marketing, and even ideation. On the other hand, it raises questions about originality, authenticity, and the integrity of human storytelling. Almost as soon as ChatGPT and its brethren were unveiled in November 22, writers started emailing me for my opinions, most with an at least subtextual request for reassurance that AI wasn't as potentially disruptive as it seemed to be. Now, I have been cautious in sharing my opinions since my own contextual understanding of the functionality of AI and its big picture ramifications weren't yet formed. More than 2 years later, it has become clear that AI is simultaneously not as apocalyptic as some may have originally thought, while also being, in some ways, even more disruptive, particularly in the long term, to the systems that undergird nearly every part of our modern lives. And this includes the impact of AI on fiction writing, which continues to evolve as new tools and capabilities emerge. Now, I need to be clear that my own experience with and opinions of AI are ever evolving. In contemplating this episode in the weeks leading up to writing it, the ideas I thought I might be sharing already changed multiple times, sometimes daily. The utility and causality of AI is vast and in itself constantly evolving. In truth, I don't think most of us will truly understand our relationship to AI until many years, perhaps even decades down the road. My own opinion in this moment is that the best approach is one of cautious practicality. The writers I have talked to about AI have largely fallen into two camps. those who find it terrifying in its capacity to change comfortable, time-honored, and beloved systems and structures, both in and out of the creative pursuits, and those who find it giddyingly delightful in its potential for play, innovation, and convenience. Concerns about the ethics of AI's origins in training without permission, off the works of untold authors, myself included, have been thoroughly discussed by this point. Lawsuits and regulations are still unfolding, all of which will be crucial to navigating this brave new world in which we find ourselves. My own first reactions to AI were sober. I wasn't someone who jumped in with both feet like I have with past technologies. However, I'm also not one to cry over spilt milk. At the very least, I feel the presence of AI in our world is now irreversible. I'm not sure yet if the proper analogy is that of a wish-granting genie having been let out of the bottle, or of Pandora having opened a box of shadow horrors. Either way, it's here, and there's no getting it back into the bottle or the box. Certainly, there is an argument that even if we could, that might not be the best choice anyway. Therefore, I believe it is important for writers, just like everyone else, to embrace the new future in which we find ourselves. Resistance born of denial ultimately harms no one more than ourselves. Just as the internet was a shatterpoint that forever altered the world in my early teens, AI will certainly unfold in ways both good and bad. And the point is, the world has changed. How can we best respond so that we both survive and thrive, not just collectively, but as individuals, and particularly in this context, as writers? To do so, we must use AI. As it becomes more integrated into everyday functionality, such as Google searches, this will become more and more intuitive and less optional. More than that, experimenting with AI, ChatGPT, Midjourney, etc., is important not just in understanding this new world and forming educated opinions about it, but in gaining entry-level skills that will likely become increasingly important to our ability to succeed as technology evolves. Think about writers who did not or would not adapt to the opportunities the internet brought 20 plus years ago. Those who did are currently thriving thanks to their ability to navigate related software, retail sites, and social media. AI represents a similar sea change, and the truth is we don't yet know which AI-related skills will be not just optional, but crucial in future years. Resisting the urge to stagnate in a comfortable status quo is the essence of character arc, and therefore story. We're in the midst of quite a story right now. It's best to be an active protagonist rather than a passive sidekick. That said, of course, AI must be embraced with awareness and caution, since its full impact is constantly unfolding and therefore not entirely knowable. Many writers are already seeing the impact of AI on fiction writing in the ways books are discovered, marketed, and even created. Some concerns include the following. Number one, ethics of AI training. The ethics surrounding how AI learns, etc., and what it produces will continue to be a topic of interest for writers. My own take, again, as someone whose books were used for training the original models, is that although it would have been preferable to have had a conversation before rather than after, the way AI learns and creates isn't really any different from how any one of us learns and creates, just on an unlimited scale. I'm not going to put any more effort into resisting AI's extrapolation of my work than I am the thousands of human writers who learn from me and then go on to write about their own integrations of my quote-unquote theories. Number two, resource consumption of AI. One of my greatest concerns about AI, which is spoken about regrettably seldom, is its tremendous resource consumption. The energy and computational costs of AI systems, especially during training, is staggering. For example, water usage. Training large AI models can consume significant amounts of water. Training GPT-3 in Microsoft's US data centers required approximately 700,000 liters, or 185,000 gallons, of water for cooling purposes. And energy consumption and carbon emissions. The energy demands of training AI models are considerable. A study from the University of Massachusetts Amherst found that training a single large AI model can emit over 626,000 pounds, or approximately 284 metric tons, of CO2, which is nearly 5 times the lifetime emissions of an average car. Although usage for individual tasks, such as you or I using ChatGPT or Google search, seems insignificant in comparison, i.e. each query or interaction may consume a few kilowatt seconds of energy, which is roughly comparable to the energy used to power a light bulb for a few seconds, the cumulative effect of billions of queries worldwide adds to the toll. Number 3, discoverability challenges. AI has already, and will continue to, evolve how books are discovered. Although in itself this is not a problem, as search discoverability is always evolving, there are legitimate fears that as AI search begins to dominate, opportunities for discoverability will narrow. Obviously, this affects not just writers wanting to be discovered, but all of us who, as consumers, are trying to discover new and interesting books, among other products that may exist beyond the obvious top tier. And number 4, two-dimensional and sometimes erroneous info. Much has also been written about AI's fallibility, from notorious Google searches that recommended running with scissors to obvious programming biases. AI's ability to control how we see the world is cause for unequivocal concern. As we become more and more familiar with large language models, or LLMs, and companionable chatbots, the challenge to remain vigilant about the validity of information and our own perceptions of it will become more and more crucial. Now, most of the above applies to anyone interacting with AI. What about writers? We are only at the cusp of the possibilities for how AI may integrate into fiction writing. Already, many writers are embracing its capabilities to help them learn, research, outline, plot, edit, and publish. AI has already proven its ability to be of tremendous help in the creative process. To the degree AI legitimately makes us more creative, which is not necessarily to be conflated with more productive, it will ultimately prove to be positive and expansive tool. But in this process, it is important for each artist to consciously and consistently perform the personal gut check of acknowledging the line where AI becomes the creator rather than the creative tool. As we explore a future in which we will increasingly collaborate with AI, I would encourage all humans to question whether or not we are choosing to interact with AI in a way that makes us less human or more. This is particularly important for writers, artists, and creatives of all types, as it is our act of creation that most defines our humanity, first individually and then collectively. AI is a decidedly mental tool. It is designed to think. And as such, it is uniquely positioned to help us with all mental tasks. Perhaps someday it will dream and emote, but even then, do we want it to dream and emote for us? For instance, some of the ways AI can be most useful to writers is by relieving the mental stress of busy to-do lists, helping with administrative duties, copywriting, ads, social media, etc., helping with research, and helping with search engine optimization. It can be tempting sometimes, especially for plot-oriented or outline-forward writers, to think storytelling is a mental process. However, the mental aspects of writing are just a small part of the overall experience, and often the last aspect to fully emerge. Story is not just a mental game. It is a deeply felt, creative, embodied process. As such, I am cautious about advocating the use of AI for story creation without significant caveats. How each writer chooses to use AI, whether in brainstorming, outlining, co-writing, etc., is ultimately as individual and personal as each person's writing process was before AI popped out of the box. That said, I encourage every creative to carefully consider how you implement AI into your creative process. Ask yourself, why are you using AI? What are your specific goals and reasons for bringing AI on board? Perhaps you enjoy it. Perhaps you feel the necessity of the changing times. Perhaps you recognize obvious ways AI can simplify the always difficult process of creating a story. Perhaps you seek greater productivity. All of these are valid responses as long as the results are not inhibiting or distracting from the deeper experience of creation. Stories are a conversation first with our own subconscious and eventually with the greater shared subconscious of the collective. It is not too great a stretch, I think, to say that our interaction with the deep archetypes of story itself and the characters who populate it is what shapes our very existence. Story is not just communication, it is communion with ourselves, with each other, and with the infinitude that lies beyond immediate understanding. Stories are sacred, and this does not mean we can't or shouldn't bring in AI tools to aid us. Indeed, insofar as AI is an extension of ourselves or an aid to our own deep subconscious creativity, then it can only be a positive. But honoring the sacredness of story does mean we must be careful not to allow AI's easy answers to bypass the depth of our creative processes. For me, the storytelling process has always been a conversation with my deep subconscious, my dreaming self, if you will. I'm not interested in what AI comes up with. I'm interested in what I come up with. I'm interested in what you come up with. More than that, although AI may enhance creativity, productivity, and efficiency, it also risks diminishing our own skills. For instance, can AI help you learn how to write a book? Can it teach you story theory? The short answer is yes, but only as an aid. Why? Because again, story is not simply a mental skill or the ability to recite certain storytelling formulae. It is an embodiment. Indeed, some of our best authors couldn't recite a formula or articulate story theory to save their lives. And yet they have written deeply embodied works of art that have not only connected with the collective subconscious, but evolved it. In many ways, the purpose of AI is to offer shortcuts. Obviously, there are both good and bad aspects of this. Just as the internet has rewired our brains, AI will undoubtedly change the way we think. As creators, we are the life force of society. As writers, we are its voices. The choices each one of us makes in how we use AI to first live our lives, and second, to write our stories, will ripple far beyond ourselves. What each of us does at this epochal moment in history and how we choose to interact with technology matters. The specifics of how we make these choices are extremely personal, not least because there is no clear right path. What is most important, and what I challenge every writer, is to remember we are the sovereigns of our own lives. We are responsible for our choices. Therefore, it is incumbent upon each of us to remain aware of what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how our choices and actions are impacting our relationships with our deepest selves, and therefore with our storytelling. Someone once asked me if it was even worth becoming a writer in this rapidly changing age of AI. First, let me comment on the pitfalls of pinning too much despair, or equally hope, on the impact AI has on fiction writing. Ultimately, I can only speak from my own personal experience. For me, the foremost reason to write is for yourself. Perhaps you publish for others, but you write for yourself. If you are unsure how to proceed at this time, examine your true motives for writing. Writers have always been anxious about publishing. Really, getting published and not getting published are equally scary. These days, it can be easy to project our anxieties or fear onto AI and use it as a convenient scapegoat for throwing up our hands, saying, "What's the point?" and not doing the thing that scares us, whether that's writing or publishing. Often, new technologies like AI can become boogeymen that conveniently distract from more personal fears. Now, as for the specific question of whether AI will render novelists and other creatives obsolete, who knows? But my personal opinion is absolutely not. Although AI and other tech will inevitably change the way we create, The single most important dynamic in art is the artist who wants to say something and the audience who wants to experience communication in this way from a fellow human. The impact of AI on fiction writing will not change the fundamental human need to create and to experience human creation. So keep creating. We're all in the midst of a tremendous story right now, and as it should be, that is both terrifying and exciting. So that brings us to the end of this week's episode. In a world where AI is reshaping the landscape of storytelling, it's more important than ever for writers to tap into the deep, timeless forces that make our stories resonate on a profound level. If you'd like to dive deeper into that, you might enjoy my book, Writing Archetypal Character Arcs. I wrote it to help you understand and harness the power of archetypes to create characters that not only drive your plots, but also connect with the universal themes that speak to our shared human experience. While AI can be a valuable tool in the writing process, the true heart of storytelling lies in our ability to explore and express these archetypal depths. So if you seek to create stories that stand the test of time, Writing Archetypal Character Arcs is a guide to crafting characters who speak to the most important human transformations. You can check it out at retailers like Amazon or via the store on my site at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And now I hope you'll stop by the site and join in the conversation on this important topic. How do you think the impact of AI on fiction writing will shape the future of storytelling? And that brings us to the end of this episode of Helping Writers Become Authors. I hope you'll stop by the site for a full transcript of this episode and to join in the conversation in the comments. Tune in for next week's episode, where we'll continue to explore all things writing and storytelling. If you'd like to support the podcast, it always means a ton when you take a moment to leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Spotify. To stay updated on all the latest content I create for you, the best way is to join my mailing list at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com/mailing list. You'll also immediately gain access to lots of free resources, including my books, Crafting Unforgettable Characters and 5 Secrets of Story Structure. For real-time connection with me, more writing advice, and behind-the-scenes glimpses, follow me on Instagram at authorkmwyland. A heartfelt thank you to each one of you for your support and enthusiasm, and especially those of you who support my work on patreon.com/kmwyland. You help make my site, this podcast, and so many other resources available to writers everywhere. So until next week, keep writing, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep being true to your stories. Thank you for being part of Helping Writers Become Authors.